Greetings, I am Rage Eggplant and welcome to Dungeons and GURPS. In this video I would like to tell you about my approach to converting D&D monsters to GURPS. First, let's talk about the D&D editions, as monsters all are presented differently in them. You probably know that D&D 3.0, 3.5 and Pathfinder are the most familiar to me, but I have seen stat blocks in OD&D, AD&D, 4E and 5E. I would say that AD&D stat blocks are the most conversion friendly, as they have few meaningless numbers, fewer gamey abilities, and have such things as diet and activity cycle. An interesting observation for me was that there seems to have been a paradigm shift between D&D 3.0 and 3.5, as monsters in 3.5 were much more likely to have purely game mechanical abilities, such as an abstract bonus to hit in certain situations, and less likely to have flavorful abilities that you might see in AD&D, and even partially in D&D 3.0 books. This is even more pronounced in Pathfinder. All my guidelines will assume D&D 3.5 stat blocks, but most of what I am going to say can be applied to anything else. As an example, let's check the Lamassu stat block. I will show it here for convenience. When I convert a new monster, the first thing I'm looking at are body morphology and size. Nowadays I just copy a stat block of another similar monster, but when I had no pre-made library of templates, I had to do it from scratch. In this case, we see that this is a quadruped, so we give Lamassu extra legs for legs and horizontal. Does it have fine manipulators? No, it just has paws. So we also give it no fine manipulators. Then let's take a look at the size. It is a large creature, but that's not telling us much. However, the description says that the Lamassu is about 8 feet long and weighs 500 pounds. 8 feet corresponds to SM plus 1 according to the table on page 19 of GURPS basic set. I have to say that this is lucky, because you do not always have such measurements in the description. If you don't, then you have to just guess it. Since we know the mass, we can also approximate the strength value using the formula from GURPS space. St equals 2 times the cube root of mass in pounds. The result is 15.87 that we round up to 16. That seems fitting for an SM plus 1 creature. But again, we are lucky here, because if such measurements are given at all, they might be a bit off. Some D&D monsters are known to be way too heavy or light for their sizes. In that case, you just have to approximate something yourself. In general, if something does not look right, just fix it, don't rely blindly on formulas. While we're calculating attributes, let's take a look at the rest of them. This is where things become much more vague. For example, the D&D Lamassu has dexterity 12. You could give it a racial plus 1 bonus to dexterity and call it a day. But you could also do the following. What is a Lamassu? It's a winged lion. Let's open page 456 of GURPS basic set and check the lion stat block. Lions are agile, so they have dexterity 13. It would be appropriate to give the Lamassu the same. They are also said to be very wise, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to give them a plus 1 or plus 2 bonus to IQ. What about health? They definitely seem tougher than a human, so a plus 1 bonus to health seems fine. I think it is important to mention that you really should not use D&D numbers here as a guideline, because the two systems are way too different. D&D is prone to stat inflation due to being a level-based system, while GURPS is not. Also, keep in mind that these are racial averages, not attribute levels for a prime specimen. When assigning secondary characteristics, you should also remember that animals usually have will and perception levels as high as humans, and often higher, despite having low IQ. Movement. The D&D Lamassu has a standard ground speed of 30 feet per round. Why is this leonine body so slow? The basic set lion has move 10. So let's give it basic move 10. Also, it has wings, so let's also give it flight with winged and possibly cannot hover limitations. I like to include cannot hover on most winged creatures to, I guess, nerf the flight somewhat. Defenses. Armor class works very differently from GURPS, DR and active defenses, so it also is subject to number inflation. Would a Lammasu have a thick hide? Probably, but it doesn't seem very thick. The basic set line has DR1, so let's give the Lammasu DR1 with tough skin. However, there's also the thick mane, so let's add DR2 with flexible, but limited to skull and neck hit locations. I guess the creature should also have the fur perk. Senses. The D&D Lammasu has low light vision and dark vision. Typically, I represent low light vision as night vision 5, but in some instances I vary the level. Depending on your taste, dark vision can be represented as infravision or, well, dark vision. I prefer the former. However, I also think that D&D makes dark vision way too common. I think more than half of all creatures have it. Why would a Lammasu be able to see in the dark? It's not an underground dwelling creature, and it can already see at night just fine with its night vision. So in this case I would just omit dark vision entirely. Attacks. A Lammasu has a humanoid head that lacks sharp teeth, but it does have feline claws, so let's give it sharp claws. Cats, however, have retractable claws, so applying switchable to the sharp claws advantage might be a flavorful decision. Diet. The book says nothing about the diet. Is it a carnivore like cats are, or is it an omnivore like humans are? I assume that since the head is humanoid that the Lammasu is an omnivore, so no disadvantages are required. Lifespan. Again, the book says nothing about lifespan. It rarely does that in general. We assume human lifespan, so that's it. The most complex part of a D&D monster typically is its array of special abilities and qualities. First, the D&D Lammasu has a fire breath weapon that can be used once per day. This is a burning attack with appropriate modifiers, magical, cone, reduced range, etc. Most of the times I really dislike abilities that have limited uses per day as they feel too gamey. When converting such abilities, instead I try to either impose an FP cost, a recharge time, or both. This way you will not be able to spam this ability and it will require at least some resources to use. The Lammasu also has some spell-like abilities. Honestly, I'm torn when it comes to spell-like abilities. On one hand, they do feel a bit gamey, but on the other hand, it is very easy to use them. Instead of coming up with new abilities each time, you just give the creature some pre-made sorcery spells as alternative abilities without the sorcerer's empowerment advantage. Usually, when creating monster templates, I only consider spell-like abilities that can be used at will. In this case, there is no such abilities. However, the Lammasu also has a constantly active magic circle against evil. In this case, I take the route of least resistance and just treat this ability as a single spell-like ability, Protection from Evil 1. Yes, I could have created an ability that projects an aura that grants DR and magic resistance against evil creatures, but I'm just lazy. Do not go overboard with spell-like abilities, as they can easily inflate the point cost of the template and or make the creature lose focus. Keep only the ones that are essential to the concept. My early conversions are guilty of not adhering to this principle. The Lammasu also has an innate ability to cast spells as a cleric. This is a major ability. What do I do with it? I just ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist. In my opinion, it just doesn't make sense for a creature to have innate clerical powers. They would need an innate code of conduct and connection to a specific deity, so I just skip it. Clerical abilities are appropriate for Lammasus, but as learned abilities that are not part of the racial template. Technically speaking, we're done here, but let's not forget that D&D and GURPS are different systems. Some things are not represented in D&D at all. For example, this is a leonine monster that lives in hot deserts. Shouldn't it at least have a level of temperature tolerance hot? Also, this is still a cat, so why not give it catfall? Perhaps perfect balance would not be out of place. Have you ever seen cats climb trees? Let's steal clinging, which requires claw holds from GURPS Animalia. Cats also usually have combat reflexes, so let's give this advantage to the Lamassu as well. And here's the result. It ended up being different from my earlier Lamassu conversion, but I will replace that one with this one, as I like this one better. It feels more like a cat than just a quadruped, right? As you could see, I pretty much disregarded all numerical data from the D&D stat block, but I should also know that you might want to adjust some numbers as well. Every GURPS game is different, and while this template might be fitting for a more grounded game, for something more high-powered, you might want to increase the numbers. But anyway, I'm not sure what else to say here, so thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.